Welcome to Cloud on Air. These are live webinars coming to you every Tuesday from Google Cloud. My name is Pete Frizella. I'm a developer advocate for Google Analytics and Data Studio.
And I'm Ncaa, developer advocate for Data Studio. And we'll be talking about building dashboards for NCAA March Madness.
So if you guys have any questions during the session, the platform can accept those questions, and we have a Googler on standby to answer them. And they'll also do a session at the end to answer any questions you might have. So with that, let's get started.
So before we go into our presentation, let's think about why visual data. In today's world, we get a lot of data from a lot of different places. We're collecting data, we're looking at them, analyzing them. So people at different places and different positions will have to use this data to get insights. You can be an individual scientist, you can be someone working in an organization, and you can use this data to get insights, analyze the data, and also verify any findings that you might have. Data visualization gives you an easy way to look at the data and get insights very quickly. You don't have to specialize in it, and you don't have to, it's a very low barrier to entry. And there are tools out there that will let you quickly get into the data, look at a lot of data as an overview as a whole, then quickly zoom in, filter, and then get insights from there.
Yeah, I think it's a good point to also maybe communicate around how that data, looks, how it potentially might provide some insights to other people within the company or people you might work with. So really, a really great way to communicate a message to people is also through visualization of data to really help them understand maybe some key points of something you're trying to communicate. So it's a really powerful tool.
Exactly. So when you're analyzing data, you can either do exploratory analysis or explanatory analysis. And when you're doing the explanatory analysis, you're basically taking your findings and sharing with other people through different medium. So you can take data from a lot of different sources, and one of the interesting sources that you have is sports. In different sports, you can get data from data about different things in the sports, and then look at it and analyze it. So recently, last year, Google Cloud did a partnership with NCAA, where Google Cloud became the official public cloud provider for NCAA. You can find more information about this partnership on the cloud portal. If you go to this link, this will show you different news about the partnership, how NCAA is using the cloud infrastructure and cloud services to analyze the data, getting insights and implementing those. And also, there is a NCAA data set available in the Google BigQuery. So this link will take us to that data set. This data set basically has NCAA game data for play-by-play data going back to 2009, and before that you have final scores back to 1986, and additional wins, data about wins and losses going back to even 1894.
So when you talk about like play-by-play, this is like each event that's happening like on the court for these games?
Exactly.
Very specific data.
Yep, yeah. These are very detailed data about every event that goes on in the game. We can have a brief look at the data set.
Sure.
This opens up BigQuery, and you can see there are a lot of tables in here. So one table that we'll be looking into using Data Studio later is this one. And this table alone has more than 24 million rows.
Okay, so it's a lot of data.
This
seems like somewhat complicated, I guess. Maybe it's around, like, this is something we want to visualize. It might be Data Studio is going to help with making this a little bit easier to work with, right?
Yes, yeah. That's where Data Studio will come in, that it will make all of these complicated and detailed big data make it easier to understand and easier to use and get insights from.
Yeah, because I think there's a wide range of people's skills and abilities around working with data, and I think BigQuery is very advanced and very specifically powerful to do a lot of things with. It can definitely be a little overwhelming for new people, I think, and the Data Studio can really help make this much easier around in terms of developing and exploring the data in a much easier way. But super powerful tool. If you're familiar with BigQuery, it's great.
Correct. So we've looked at the data set a bit now. The way to analyze this data is use Data Studio. Data Studio is Google's next generation business intelligence and visualization tool. It's completely free. You can go to datastudio.google.com and start using the tool right now. It connects to a lot of different Google services and lets you analyze the data that's available to you. So we use Data Studio to analyze some of these NCAA data sets that we have. This is one of those dashboards, so we'll look at it right now. this opens up the dashboard, and this is pulling in data from BigQuery as we speak.
So this is live, right?
This is live.
This shows you how like BigQuery, in terms of being able to crunch a lot of data very quickly. This is like 24 million
yes,
rows
so
of
like,
data. So
since I clicked and till the moment this dashboard became available, Data Studio worked with BigQuery to go through all those 24 million records and get the summary and then bring up this dashboard.
That's pretty impressive. And this is like a total aggregate view of all the data. So we have like 174,000 field goals made.
Yes.
900,000 fields. So it's a lot. Okay, so it's a lot of events that are happening.
And you can interact with the dashboard right now. So let's say we want to look at a certain game. We don't want to look at all the games. Just pick one. And this will list all the games. And this is something that happened yesterday, Florida State versus Xavier. So let's look at that one. If we click on this, it will filter the view only for that game, and we can see all the shots that were made during that game. The red ones are the shots that made but didn't score, and the green ones are the shots that did score. You can also use other filters. Let's say if we pick only the 3-point shots, this will keep only the shots that are outside of
this. So you should only see dots around the outside. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And we can go back and keep all of them. We can pick a different game. So let's pick something. We can filter something. Rhode Island versus Duke. Let's pick this one.
Okay.
So it's again going through all of the data set, trying to filter, and this is the filtered view. You can also try to filter by date. Since we picked only one game, it's showing the filter for that one.
It looks like you have like additional data when you hover over each one of these dots. Like, do you get some additional information?
So when you're hovering over a point, it will give you the details of that record. For example, this one was a event where Darren Russell made a 3-point jump shot. The shot was made, it was true, and it happened at the 7:31 mark of the game.
That's cool.
You can also look at each team. We can filter only for, let's say, Rhode Island in this game, and this shows us all the shots that Rhode Island made during this game. So yeah, this is one view of the dashboard, and we can look at a second dashboard that we have. If we go back, this is another dashboard in Data Studio, but this is coming from a different data set.
Yeah. Again, this is like live data coming directly from the BigQuery, like that data set that was in BigQuery,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. It's crunching all the data, and this is a comparison view between two teams. You can pick any team you want on the left side and on the right side, and it will give you a summary of the a summary of all the data for that team for the 2017 to 2018 season.
Okay.
For example, for North Carolina, you can see they have 26 wins and 11 losses compared to UCLA, who have 21 wins and 12 losses. On this side and this side, you can see all the games that these teams played and the scores, who they played it with, and the scores of each game. You should see about 11 losses and 26 wins for North Carolina on this side. And there are other stats related to all of these games for both of these teams. And you can pick a different team from here as well.
Sure. And so this goes back to your original when you were talking about visualization of data, being able to, in a quick glance, get some insights out of data, right? Because we have this huge data table, this huge data set in BigQuery, with the report that you're able to create. This one's somewhat complicated. This report, it looks like it was a lot of work. I don't know, maybe it wasn't, but I think we're going to go through some demos later. But in a quick glance, you can get some good insights and view of this data, and that's the power of visualization, right? So this is a very, I think for people who are basketball fans, probably somewhat similar view. But again, like at the end of the day, it is a visualization that you're creating here to represent this huge set of data, right? Right. It's very interesting. This is cool. So we can see like people are, maybe North Carolina's got a good away record versus maybe Michigan has a great home record. So some quick insights you can get just by visualizing this.
That's the whole idea, that if you wanted to get these kind of insights from the raw data set, you'd have to write a lot of queries, and maybe those wouldn't give you this whole complete holistic picture at one glance. You'd have to write different queries at different times, get one simple point of data, and if you wanted a different team, you'd have to pick a different query again, and that would take a lot of time. But once you have this completed solution that you design, this gives you an overview, and you can design it for one team, and then you can simply switch the view and look at the same information for other teams as well, and you can do quick comparisons. Sure. Now, we've seen some examples of the dashboards, and we'll see later how we can build them, but let's talk a little bit about Data Studio. As I mentioned earlier, Data Studio is the next generation business intelligence and visualization tool from Google. It's completely free. You can use it right now by going to datastudio.google.com. The way Data Studio works is that first you connect to your data, then you try to visualize your data, and then you while you're visualizing, you can set it up either for exploratory analysis, or you can also do explanatory, where you're sort of trying to share it with other people. And once that is ready, you basically set up your dashboard so that other people can view your work. So let's go through these steps one by one. When you're connecting to your data in Data Studio, you have lots of options available. You have a lot of connectors. You can connect to internal Google data sources like Sheets, BigQuery, Cloud SQL, and Cloud Storage. Your data might be already present there, or your data might be outside of these sources, and you can bring in your data from your on-premise data source or external source and bring those data into these sources. You can also bring in your existing information from Google Analytics, AdWords, YouTube. We have direct connectors available for this. You might also have on-premise data in MySQL or Postgres, and Data Studio can connect directly to those data sources, to those databases, and bring the data into Data Studio for you to analyze. Now, these are mostly Google data sources, but what if your data is somewhere else? What if you have to access your data using a public API? Or you have on-premise data that you can access using a private API? That's where community connectors come in. Community connectors are connectors for Data Studio that are designed by the Data Studio community. They let you get your data from any API that might include Web API or JDBC, and bring that data into Data Studio for you to analyze.
Yeah, I think it's a very powerful feature. We've seen a lot of people using this feature to bring in data that's not necessarily publicly available. Maybe it's something just for your company that you might have a specific API, and you really want to be able to allow your users within your company analyze that data within Data Studio. So this really gives you a great option to extend the platform and bring data that's really important to your business, or to to specifically to some use case that you might have. And we actually have a lot built by our partners already that are supported by our partners. But we've definitely seen a lot of growth around just companies building their own connectors to meet their use case. And
exactly.
Yeah, it's been really a large number of connectors been built, which has been great.
So we have, I believe we have around 75 connectors that connect to more than 400 data sources now.
I mean, the data is the most important part of it, right? To start with, right? Without the data, you can't do any analysis.
Exactly.
So obviously, you got to start. This is the biggest component, right? Everybody has access to lots of data. They're not necessarily easy to get to sometimes, but this makes it much simpler.
Yep, and this gives you the flexibility to have your customized solution. You can bring in templates that work with your community connectors and provide you with a very customized solution, either for your clients or for your customers, or even for your internal employees.
Okay, so we got the data, then next.
So we have the data, but then you can create once you've brought your data into Data Studio, you can create some nice visualizations, and we'll see how you can build those visualizations. So let's say your visualization is already built, and now you want to share your work with others. How can you do that? There are multiple ways available. The first is you can just share with a link, just like Drive or Drive documents. You can provide people with view access or write access. You can also embed your Data Studio report as a infographic or report in any web page, or you can use it as a presentation. We'll have a very quick look at one of these examples. This is a blog post on the Cloud Big Data blog where there was an analysis of the blockchain data for Bitcoin. And over here you can see there are Data Studio dashboards that are working on live data. And you can interact with these dashboards right now. We can pick a date range. Let's say we can pick.
So this is on the Google Cloud blog, and it's an embedded dashboard in the blog. So if anybody went to this URL right now, they would see this report and they can actually interact with it. Right?
Correct, yeah, exactly. And this was made using Data Studio, using the BigQuery data.
And using BigQuery data, yeah.
Now going back, so let's create some dashboards. We know how Data Studio works. So let's use that knowledge to create some dashboard that we use. But let's try with a very simple example first. We'll look at a sheet that has some data. So this Google Sheet has data from fueleconomy.gov. It's a subset of the data that contains fuel economy about different vehicles. This is what the data looks like. So
this is just giving you an overview of like end to end how the feature actually works and the product works. So we have some data we're going to start with. In this case, just fuel data, right? Fuel.
Yep. Yeah. And we can go to Data Studio.
So this sheet, it's in Google Sheets. There's a sheet of data, right? Now you're coming into Data Studio.
And then they're picking, let's say create a new report. So I'll create a new report.
Okay.
This is creating my new report, and I'll create a new data source. And I'll pick
And a data source is like a connection to some data somewhere, right? So like in
Yes.
this case, we're going to connect to Google Sheets and create this data source.
Right. These connectors are the connectors that we mentioned before, the different data sources
Sure.
that you can connect to.
Yep.
So we'll pick Sheets, and this is the sheet that we're trying to connect to. It will give us the list of the worksheets, and we want to connect to the data worksheet, this one.
Yep. Okay.
And
So you can connect. Okay.
Now, this Data Studio went into the sheet and tried to figure out what data is there. And I know that this one is, though it's a number, I want to use it as a text. And so I'll just change this type to text, and I'll do a quick count on the number of this. And then I'll add it to the report.
Okay, so this just represents all the different columns that were in the sheet. Those
Yes.
are your different fields that you can work with. Okay.
So let's say I want to look at all the vehicles that were added to the database and the date of the vehicle, release date of the vehicle. So I will add the count of vehicles as the metric that we're trying to use, and also we'll make it a cumulative number. So we can say that it's about 1,200. So we'll also put the total number in here. So we picked a line chart here, which is a time series chart, but we'll pick a total scorecard that will look at the same information but at a aggregate level. So for this one, I'll pick again the distinct count. So 1,220 records are there. And this is, as you can see, it's a very nice, easy to use, flexible interface where you can do drag and drop.
Sure.
We can also create a bar chart. And we want to look at different air aspiration method, and maybe look at their average mileage and make it a horizontal bar chart.
So we've taken that sheet that was, columns of data and been able
Yes.
to visualize it very easily with click, point, drag and drop, different components of visualizations that we have.
Right.
Very, very simple process.
And this is where we're trying to do maybe look at the percentage of vehicles that are marked as gas guzzler.
Okay.
And we'll do one more example here that's a quick scatter chart. We'll pick maybe the record number here, and we will do engine displacement and the mileage. So this gives us a nice scatter chart of all the vehicles and their mileage versus engine displacement. You can also set up different colors, label it using different colors. Maybe we'll change the color to represent the aspiration method of the engine. And now you can see a nice scatter chart that shows a relationship between the mileage and the engine displacement. So this gives us a quick overview of the capabilities of Data Studio. So let's go back and try to use what we learned here to create some dashboards using the NCAA data. So first we'll try to create the dashboard from the NCAA play-by-play data. We've already created a data source using the BigQuery connector, and we'll just use that.
So this data source is connecting to that table you showed us in BigQuery earlier.
Yes.
So there's that we made the connection, the data source is already created, and now we can just use that data source because it's already done. And this data source can be used in multiple reports, right? Not
Yes.
just this one. So
If you
can
create
reuse them basically, yeah.
Yep. If you create the data source once, you can just keep on using it multiple times across different sources, and you don't have to reconfigure it.
Sure.
So we'll create a scatter chart.
Now, how did you know what fields are in here and which ones to do? Did you do some? You spend some time.
We had to spend
data?
some time with
Sure.
the data set to figure out which field was what, and we built the dashboard once, but at least we have some idea. So we'll add a small filter that says exclude shots made.
So you're excluding shots made. For what reason?
We're excluding shot type.
Oh, shot type.
Yep.
Okay.
So there are lots of events in this data. The shot type means that if the shot type is null, then a shot wasn't made. So we're only trying to look at events that where a shot was tried to, someone tried to get a score.
Yeah. So it's always important to look at your data, understand what is in that data, what questions you're trying to answer, and maybe there's some things you need to filter out or clean up just to get your data prepared in a spot that's good for you to start visualizing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we know that there are coordinates for the court, so these coordinates represent the coordinate of the court. So we'll put those coordinates here. So we'll put the x coordinate for the x metric and the y coordinate for the y metric.
Okay. And this was a scatter plot, you said, right?
It's a scatter plot.
Scatter plot.
Now it's starting to take some shape, and we'll add a filter for just one game. So let's add this filter. And this filter will let us choose a game.
Okay.
I want to show values, and we want to just pick one game. So let's see what game we can pick from here. We can view the report. We can see there are different games over here, and we'll try to, let's say, pick the Penn State versus Pittsburgh one. So we'll copy this value, go back and say that this is the value we want to be selected by default.
By default, okay. And you just drag that filter on and it lists everything for you automatically based on that dimension that you'd already selected, right?
Yes.
The game dimension?
It's going into the data set and trying to see what values are there, all the unique values, and it's pulling that up and populating the control over there.
Yep.
And for this one, we'll try to also break down the data by, first, let's say, timestamp. And then by event.
And the event is the, so timestamp is obviously the time that this event happened, and the event is a description of what type of event it was?
Yes.
Or, okay.
And the shot type.
And then we want to know the shot type?
Yep. And we'll try to do this average because there might be same things averaging over time.
And so, like within the product itself, you can actually change the aggregation type of these different metrics by clicking that little
Yeah. So what I'm doing here is
yeah.
I'm going here and I'm changing if the numbers are getting aggregated, how are the numbers getting aggregated, and we can see here there is some kind of pattern coming up here. We'll add the image of the court over here. So I'll add an image. I'll select a file. I already have this available over here.
Okay.
So the court is
conveniently available, the image, yes.
Yes, we just spent some time making it earlier. And we'll bring this one to the front. And we'll try to make this look nicer, so we'll get rid of we know that the bounds for these axes are, on the y-axis it's 600, and on the x-axis it's 1100. So we'll hide the axis, we'll also hide the legend, and this is starting to look like the code that we just created.
Before, yep.
And if we reshape it, you can see what's going on here.
Sure, very cool.
We can also change the colors to show whether the shot was made or not. We can do shot.
What are you looking for here?
So I'm trying to see whether the shots resulted in a goal or a score or not.
Okay, so shot like a true or false kind of thing, if it's made or not, and that's going to determine the color of the actual dot itself. Okay.
Yes. So if I go back in and choose this, shot made, and we'll change the colors. If the shot was made, we'll make it green, and if it was not made, it's already red. And this is basically what the game looked like.
Okay.
So this is one visualization that we can create, and we can see right now that we can pick different games from here. We can pick this one, and that'll update the whole scorecard, the whole visualization to reflect the outcome of that game particularly.
Sure. So a couple things to note here, I guess. One is the filter was added and it automatically worked with that visualization, right? So there's some kind of magic going on there that's assuming that these two things are related together, and if they work together, you get this result, which is great. Right. The other thing is, I think, you were able to build the visualization actually fairly quickly, given it looked like it was a very complicated visualization. You seem to know what to do very well, very quickly, right? So it seems like you spend some time with the data beforehand, right? So you do have to understand the data you're working with, understand the data set, and dig in a little bit and just understand kind of the questions you're trying to answer, which makes it, we were able to do it very quickly, but I think it shows really the capability of being able to visualize things quickly is definitely possible.
Right, and the other thing is, you can also use Data Studio to look at the data itself. So you can do quick aggregations, you can look at different histograms and try to figure out what does this field mean? Sure. How does this column relate to this other column? So Data Studio can be your exploratory tool as well. So that was one dashboard that we looked at, and then let's try to create a second dashboard, which is the Teams game data.
Okay.
And again, we have the data source ready for this, and we'll use this data source to create the dashboard.
Now this one had a lot going on, right? There was a lot of different components that were going.
Yes, and we'll try to create some components for there.
Sure.
So let's create a report.
Is this the same data? Is this the same table that we had
It's a
before?
different table.
Okay.
It's a different table that has information
Team
about
games.
the teams.
Sure.
Doesn't have the play-by-play information. So the first thing we'll do is we'll add a filter over here and pick a team. So if I type team here, we're trying to look at different teams.
We want to see team by team comparison and things. Okay.
Yep.
So.
And I know that by default, I want to look at Duke.
Okay.
And I'll add a table. And I want to see all the games they have played. So I'll add those games one by one. So I'll look at game.
So you're going to add things like the game,
Yes.
game name, some attributes of the game you want to know about.
Yep.
This is going to show up on this table. It's automatically going to be filtered by that control you put on there already,
Yep.
which is great.
The score is already there. So the game score is already there, and we'll bring in the opponent name.
Okay.
So,
Who they were playing, that's important.
Yep.
That'd be useful to know.
and let's see if we can bring out the date. And we'll try to sort by the date. So as you can see, this gives us the dates for all of, this gives us information for all of the games across different seasons. And we'll see a little bit later how we can filter only for the current season.
Sure, this goes back like years, right? So there's lots of data here. Yeah.
Up to 2009. So this one is here, and we can see the last game they played was in March 17, like a few days ago, and it was a good win where they scored 87 against Rhode Island.
Sure.
So we'll just group these two so that this filter is applied only to this table. So we'll select these two and
So you can
group
scope
them.
the filtering down just to one particular table.
Yes.
Yeah, makes sense.
So you can have filters at multiple hierarchies. You can set filters at page level, at report level, or also at different element level within the same page.
Sure.
And we'll make a copy of this and paste the same thing. And let's say for this one, we want to look at only Virginia. So we now have a comparison between Duke and Virginia on the same page.
Okay.
Now let's add a page level filter that will try to give us data for a specific season. So I'll try to find the season.
So we have two identical, you copied the one, you changed the filter in the one, and now you're creating another filter that's just going to be the whole page. It's going to control
Yes.
higher level thing. Okay.
So we can see that the Duke has played, we have information for 182 games of Duke and 176 games from Virginia.
Okay.
But let's limit that to only the current 2017 season. So we'll pick 2017 over here. And that should limit everything down only up to this year.
Okay.
And you can see that this year they played 35 games, Duke and Virginia played 34 games, and this dashboard is right now ready to be viewed.
Very cool.
So we can also pick different years from here. You can pick different teams. If you can play, let's say Santa Cruz, and you can see the game information. They have only one game over here.
Very cool. And this report can be shared with anybody.
Yes.
It can also be embedded in a website or blog.
Exactly.
Yes.
So if you want to share it with someone, you can just click this button and you can share it with someone else. You can get a shareable link where other people can use this link directly to view the report, or you can also share it with specific people, give them either edit access or view access. And if you want to embed it, we'll go back to the dashboard. What we have here is you can go to File, Embed Report, you enable embedding, and this gives you a nice little code snippet. You can just copy and paste it into any website that supports the embedding, iframe embedding, and then you'll be able to view and interact with this dashboard within that website.
Cool.
So we built two dashboards. We have seen how Data Studio works. There are some other examples we have. Maybe we can go through one or two of them right now. These are built by some of our partners or some of the data enthusiasts we have that have been using Data Studio. This one is very interesting. This one shows log usage in GCP, the Google Cloud project, Google Cloud Platform, where you can see usage of daily view, monthly view, and it's broken down by different services. You can go into this, you can filter the data. This is already created, and the good thing is you can take this template and use it with your own project. You don't have to create this from scratch. That's one of the unique thing, very nice things about Data Studio is that anytime you create something, you can let other people take that template and build on top of your work.
So you can make a copy of this and then connect to your own data source, and then it'll just work with your own data?
Exactly.
Because all the fields and things will be the same, yeah?
As long as you're using a similar data set that has the same field names and structure, your data should work. There's one other data set. This was made by Mark Suarez, one of our partners. This is a economical data about US household income distribution by state. Over here you can see the income distribution for each different state sort of arranged in a geographic location wise. You can see the income distribution of the east side, west side, and sort of very nice overall view that gives you a complete picture of the whole economy.
I mean, Mark did some nice work here. You have like the representation of the United States of America, and then individually you have these components that are like showing this income distribution, right?
Exactly.
So it's a nice like meta view of the country in that particular data set.
Right.
It's very cool.
Let's look at one more. This one came up new, and this one shows a new feature that we have that is pretty cool. This is data from the Google Merchandise Store. And this is bringing in analytics data. The nice thing is it's also pulling in the images. So if you have image URLs in your data set, you can take that image URL and you can render the image in your Data Studio dashboard. So for each item in the analytics data, they're basically pulling in that image and rendering it in Data Studio to give a nice view of that product.
So there's can we see an example of that, or is there? We don't have time.
Maybe.
Okay, let's come back to it.
Yeah, the information is available on our support site. You can see how we can basically, anytime you have an image URL in your data set, you can just take that and
it'll render it, yeah. That's great.
Exactly. And this one is a very nice example where Data Studio was used to showcase student information system data that has school district metrics. You have days enrolled, how many students were enrolled, different combination of students, the race, the gender, and you can filter here to pick up different grades. This is very helpful for anyone who is sort of like an administrator in a school system. And again, since this is a general purpose data dashboard, someone else who has a similar data set can just use this, copy it, and use it for their own usage.
So when you copy it, you can edit it and do anything you want with the report itself, right? You can change things around. You can make adjustments, change the data set. You can see how they actually built the report.
Correct.
Right? It helps because it's actually a great way to learn about how to use the product. It's something that we've definitely been trying to push people to build more templates, really showcase what's possible with their own data, and it's been working really well for people.
Exactly. So these are the resources that are available for Data Studio right now. We'd love for you to go ahead and build a dashboard in Data Studio. You can go to datastudio.google.com. If you want some inspiration, you can go to the Data Studio gallery.appspot.com, where we have dashboards from different partners available. You can watch some tutorials on YouTube. If you want to develop solutions around Data Studio, you can go to our dev site at developers.google.com/datastudio, where we have information about the community connectors and how you can build one. You can also get support at support.google.com/datastudio. And let us know what you build, any cool dashboards or any new cool connectors that you come up with.
So thank you guys for listening. We are going to take a short break for some questions and answers that are coming. We're collecting them right now. We'll be back in a few minutes and we'll answer those questions for you guys. So stay tuned. Welcome back. We have a few great questions from you guys. We're going to go through them now, and hopefully everybody will be satisfied at the end. So the first question is, where do I go to build my own data connection? How long does it take to do that? So the developer documentation is available at developers.google.com/datastudio. What you're looking for is a feature called Community Connectors. And this, the documentation goes through how to actually build the connector, how it works from end to end, how to test them, and provide some samples. We also have a GitHub repository that gives you some really great detailed examples of how this code works and how you can build them. How long does it take to do that? So that really depends on the complexity of the API you're connecting to, how well you know the service you're connecting to. A lot of the work, at least my personal experience, is that when you're working with a new API, it's actually, that's what takes a long time, is just learning the new API, like how does their service work. The actual writing of the code for the connector is fairly straightforward, and I probably expect you would be getting something up and running within probably an hour at the very least. Yep. And then probably what's going to take more time over time is just really finalizing that, making sure it's working well and testing it if you intend to provide it to others to use. It's really more around the quality control there. So yeah, fairly quickly, probably 10, 15 minutes if you're really, if you're familiar with app scripts, you'll get something working. So it's actually quite easy and cool to play with.
Yep. The second question is, what kinds of new fields or metrics can I create in Data Studio? So Data Studio provides a feature where you can create calculated metrics, and we have more than 70 different functions that you can use. You can basically, depending on what data you're bringing in, you can add different fields together. You can do analytical functions on them. If you go to the Support Center, there's the whole list of all the functions available and how you can use them. You can also do some analytical functions like aggregations, percentages of total, and things like those. The third question is, you mentioned public data sets on BigQuery. Can you show how to connect to them from Data Studio? So on BigQuery, there are multiple public data sets available for anyone to use. To use those, what you'll have to do is basically go into BigQuery and sort of come up with any query that you might want to do. You can query the whole table, and then you can go into Data Studio. We can show that. Well, if you go to the Support Center, okay, we can actually show that.
Yeah, we'll just show it.
So let's go into Data Studio, and we'll try to add a new report. We'll create a new data source. We'll add BigQuery.
So there's a BigQuery connector.
Right.
It's going to show you public data sets.
There's a public data set. You'll have to pick your billing project. You can get the free billing project that gives that lets you use the data within some quota. You can pick any public data set you want. If you want, let's say we'll pick the World Bank health population, and you can pick which table you want to look into, and then if you connect, that will connect to BigQuery and let you use the data.
Yeah. And also, we encourage you to go to the Help Center documentation. This will also explain how to do this process,
exactly.
Right? All right. The next question is, Data Studio is free. That's great. Yes, it is. If I upload my own data, where does it go? Is that storage also free? So in most cases, the connection is actually going directly to the end service. So in that case, we're not actually storing anything. There is some level of caching just to make for performance reasons, but we actually don't store anything in that case. There are some connectors like the CSV upload or the file upload. In that case, yes, then we would be storing that actual data. And there are some limits, I think.
It's a 2 gigabytes per person, and that if you upload your own CSV file, that will get stored on cloud storage.
Cloud storage, yeah. Again, if you go to the Help Center documentation, there is around the file upload, CSV upload, it'll discuss what the limits are and where that data is stored. Otherwise, typically it's coming directly from the service.
Right. So the last question we have is, what about non-image URLs in data? Can I automatically link out to external sources and pages? Yes, you can do that right now. If you have any URLs or links in your data, you can create a table, and in that table you can mention that this field is a link or this field is a URL. You can also use the URL formula. You can look it up on the help site.
Why don't we show it down? We got a few minutes here. Maybe we can just show them how it actually works.
Let's see.
Or did I put you on the spot here?
No, we can do it. I have to find where we have to see where we can find a URL. Let's say I'll use the Sheets connector and make up a URL over here.
Sure.
I'll just add a URL field, and I'll say, I'll just say https://datastudio.google.com. And I will connect to this data source. So let me go back to Sheets and my start one, Worksheets connector. I will connect to the data, and I'll do connect.
So we have one column URL. There's a URL in that
There's just
column.
one
obviously.
record over there, and this
so
is the
sees it there.
URL.
Okay, great.
And I'll pick this as URL.
So we've identified this field as being a URL in this case. We've actually
Yes.
specified that, right?
Yep. What we can also do, just to be sure, if you don't want to specify it as a URL over here, but you want to manually create a formula, what you can do is URL link, and we can say.
So we're creating a new field called URL link,
Yes.
and there's some functions that we can use to actually make that
You can
field.
use a URL function.
URL function, okay.
Well, basically, since we have already something named URL, it's difficult to use that formula. We can use just this and see how we can work
Sure.
with that.
So the idea is you actually have a field type that's URL. And so
Yes.
then Data Studio will know what to do with that because it knows it's been identified as a URL.
Correct. And if I add this, so this is the URL,
Yep.
and we can show it as auto or image. If we view it, you can see this is
it's
a
a
link.
working link, yep.
And if we click on it, it'll open the link in a new window.
Right.
And that's how you can link to external sources.
And images work in a very similar fashion. You would say it's an image, and then when it's Data Studio will know what to do with it, and it'll actually render the image.
Right. So for the image, what you do is you do it this the same way, but over here, instead of auto, you can show it as an image, and it will render the image.
And then we'll render the image, yeah.
Correct.
Great. Well, thank you very much, guys, for the questions. They were great. We hope you enjoyed yourself today. Pleasure talking to you. We hope you learned something, and we'll check out Data Studio. But we want you to stay tuned for the next session we have. It's Deploy, Monitor, and Optimize Developing Applications with the Google Cloud Platform, coming right here from Sunnyvale. So thank you very much.